the school building committee for the purposes of doing a feasibility study for the Colonel Moses Parker Middle School. Chelmsford Telemedia is live streaming this meeting and also recording this meeting for later viewing. You'll notice for the committee members that the agenda has meeting minutes and public input as the next item on the agenda. I just put that because I was setting up the agenda for future meetings. So we won't have any meeting minutes to go over this evening, and I don't see anybody from the public here, so we won't have any public input. So welcome and introductions, and I will just give a brief overview of why we're here. So welcome all. Thank you all for coming. The reason we're here, the town of Chelmsford was invited to partner with the Mass School Building Authority in conducting a feasibility study for a new Colonel Moses Parker Middle School. I'd like to just read a quick excerpt from the letter that we received from them to give you an idea of what our work will be. So, dear Mr. Cohen, I am pleased to report that the Board of the Massachusetts School Building Authority has voted to invite the town of Chelmsford to partner with the MSBA in conducting a feasibility study for the Colonel Moses Parker Middle School. The board's vote follows the town's timely completion of all the requirements of the MSBA's eligibility period. Just going to speak quickly about the eligibility period. The work that was done prior to this initial feasibility study involved submitting an initial compliance certification, educational profile, questionnaires, online enrollment projections. We had an enrollment meeting that was held a couple of months ago. Maintenance and capital planning information, local vote authorization, which was done in the Springtown meeting, the feasibility study agreement, and the initiation of the school building committee. This school building committee here, and I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves in a few minutes, but this committee and its makeup is somewhat dictated by Massachusetts School Building Authority, in that they require a member that is MCPPO certified for procurement purposes for the state, local chief executive officer, school committee member, superintendent of schools, local official responsible for building maintenance, representative of office authorized by law to construct school buildings, school principal, member knowledgeable in educational mission and function of facility, local budget official or member of local finance committee, members of the community with architecture, engineering, and or construction experience, and various other reasons. So we needed to meet those requirements to satisfy MSBA for this committee. We have done that. This committee has been certified by the Mass School Building Authority at this point. So to finish up their letter, she goes on to say, I do want to emphasize that this invitation to partner on a feasibility study is not an approval of a project, but is strictly an invitation to the town to work with MSBA to explore potential solutions to the problems that have been identified. Moving forward in the MSBA's process requires collaboration with the MSBA, and communities that get ahead of the MSBA without MSBA approval will not be eligible for grant funding. To qualify for any funding from the MSBA, local communities must follow the MSBA statute, regulations, policies, which require MSBA collaboration and approval at each step of the process. During the feasibility study phase, the town and the MSBA will partner pursuant to the terms of the feasibility study agreement to find the most fiscally responsible and educationally appropriate solution to the problems identified at the Colonel Moses Parker Middle School. The feasibility study, which will be conducted pursuant to the MSBA's regulations and policies, requires the town to work with the MSBA on the procurement of an owner's project manager and designer, which will help bring the town's feasibility study to fruition. And that last sentence is really the main work of the next few meetings, is to get an OPM on board and a designer on board. So having said all of that, I'd like to just move into introductions, and if it's okay with those online, I would start with Jim Clancy. How about Christine Clancy?
Oh,
Oh, there he is. Okay. Yeah, there you are, Jim. Thank you. Jim, just a brief introduction about yourself and such.
sure, Pat. And I don't know how clear it's coming through there. The connection on Zoom is a little choppy, so hopefully it's not choppy there.
No.
I am the chair of the finance committee in town, and have been for the past 7 or so years. And I fill that seat, as you mentioned in your introduction, that requires a member of the finance committee. Personally, I'm an attorney. I've lived in town for many years. Actually, only for 5 or 6 years of my entire life have I not lived in Chelmsford. We have 2 young kids in the school system, and I myself went to Parker schools forward to hopefully bring this to a successful conclusion in the years to come.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Christine Clancy.
Hi, I'm Christine Clancy, DPW Director, and I'm also a resident of Chelmsford. I've been with the DPW for almost 3 years, and the DPW, working concurrently with the school system, is responsible for maintenance of facilities. So not only the maintenance day to day, but also the capital projects and projects of this nature. So excited to be part of this project, and also as a resident, see this project come to life, and hopefully have a student or child in the system go to the new Parker School.
Thank you, Christine. Brandon.
Brandon Kelly. I am basically a lifelong resident of Chelmsford. I have 2 daughters who are in the Chelmsford school system. I also went through the Chelmsford school system and graduated from Chelmsford High School. I am also a facilities director for the town of Lincoln, so bring a little bit of knowledge from that end.
John.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Souza. I serve as Town Finance Director. Also serve as the Chair of the Capital Planning Committee. And I also I serve as an elected member of the town's planning board, lifelong resident of Chelmsford as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing this project go forward.
Ryan.
Hi, Brian Curley, Director of Facility Services for the Chelmsford Schools. I am not a resident of Chelmsford, but I do like coming here to work. I have about 45 years in facilities management, and I hope I can bring something to the table.
Thank you, Brian. Joanna.
I'm Joanna Johnson Collins, the Director of Business and Finance for the Chelmsford Public Schools. I've been with the Chelmsford Public Schools for about 8 years now, and look forward to helping the community with this project.
Thank you. Dennis.
Yep, Dennis King, member of the school committee, been on the school committee now for 8 years. Also a high school teacher, been over 36 years. Lifelong resident of Chelmsford. Well, I went through the schools, my kids went through the schools, I went back through them when they weren't quite as old as they are now, so I'm looking forward to see us kind of move forward with new buildings.
Thank you. Josh.
How you doing, Josh Blagg? I'm the current principal of the Parker Middle School. It's a great school. I grew up in Chelmsford as well, product of the schools. It is a great school, but is in dire need of some the schools. Just being around other schools and seeing what is being built, it's very excited to be part of this project.
Thanks, Josh. Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Schweitzer. I am currently the facilities manager for the DPW. I've been there for 2 years now, a little over that. I have about 30 years experience in the construction industry, 20 of those as working for an architect, and then about 7 or 8 of those working for an OPM. I've worked on a lot of schools in the past, so hopefully I can lend some of those knowledge gained from those experiences to the process.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Cohen, Town Manager. First, I want to thank everybody for stepping forward and agreeing to serve on the School Building Committee. I myself personally am not a Chelmsford resident, although I think I spend more of my awake time in Chelmsford than in any other community, given that my work and also my mother lives in town, and I basically am in town 6 to 7 days a week. I now in my 36th year of municipal administration in basically eastern Massachusetts communities. It sort of started back almost 30 some odd years ago, on the town of Millville's elementary school project, where they actually built an elementary school, one of the first ones that they had ever built, obviously under the MSBA, in a little town of 2,500 people, which has since then has actually had a revamp. And I think that's really what inspires me at this effort is this literally is a generational effort by the community. The last building committee Pat chaired was approximately 20 years ago. And as we all know, the last new school that was constructed in the community is now over 50 years ago. And so this really is a significant monumental effort. And I look forward to working with everyone in the months and years ahead to bring this to fruition.
Well, Dr. Lang.
Hi, my name is Jay Lang. I am the superintendent of schools here in Chelmsford. It's my 10th year here. I came in 2015. Have had a great experience in Chelmsford, although I do not live here. I've always had close ties and friends and family that have, so I spent a good deal of my upbringing in Chelmsford as well. Chelmsford is a great school system, very supportive town, very supportive community, town meeting, right down the line. I think people are very vested in the education that we offer in the school system. In my prior work in the Lowell schools, I had the opportunity to work with the MSBA on several projects, elementary schools, middle school builds. So I'm very familiar with working with the MSBA. Things have changed quite a bit working with the MSBA over the last number of years. But it's a great opportunity, I think, for the community to look at a potential new school building project and have a significant portion of that funding be paid by the state. So I think anytime you have an opportunity to work with the state as a partner in the project and have a kind of a cost share, it's certainly advantageous to the community. But we're very excited about this. Look forward to working with this committee and seeing the work forward over the next number of years.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. My name is Patrick Maloney. I'll be serving as the chair of this committee. My history with the town of Chelmsford, I've been a longtime resident, moved here in 1970, started fifth grade in Byham School, which was a new school at the time. Graduated Chelmsford High School in '79, which was still a relatively new school, so I benefited from new schools as a student here in Chelmsford when I was younger. And much like somebody else, but for a few years in the '80s, I've been here since 1970. When it came time for us to have kids, we came back to Chelmsford for the same reasons that my parents came here, and I'm hoping that my kids come back and can afford to get back here and raise their kids here in Chelmsford. So my history of work in the town of Chelmsford goes back to the late '90s when I got involved with a school building project. We were looking for a new high school at the time. We put forward a couple of proposals to the town in the $104 and $110 million range, which were shot down. We went on further to that, and through a lot of committee work from various people in town, we got an approval for $32 million to go and work on the middle and upper schools here in Chelmsford. So that's the last major capital project that was done here, and it got approved in 2004. Oh, and lo and behold, right as we're about to take off, MSBA puts a moratorium on funding. So the town decided to go it alone. We started out that way, but there were some of us in town that weren't going to take no for an answer. So through some lobbying and many efforts from Dr. Moser, the superintendent at the time, Bernie Lynch, myself, and various other people in town, we were able to get the town, to get MSBA and the state to reimburse us $17 million for that project. But that is the last major capital project here in town. So Paul mentioned the high school is 51 years old. That's our newest building. People still call it the new high school. It's 51 years old. Let that sink in. So anyway, I've gone on since then. I've worked on various projects in town, fire stations, town halls projects, country clubs, various other things. So I've been involved a long time. I'm honored to be sitting here today with the possibility of getting a new school brought into Chelmsford. So I'm willing to work hard, and so that's my background. And the next item on the agenda is a project overview. But before we get to that, I just want to jump down, because I know, John, you have to leave, so I want to...
I'm sorry, I was mistaken. I had my head that the meeting started at 6:30 and I had told you, but I checked in, it was actually 7, so I apologize for the mix-up.
Oh, okay, so you have a few minutes. Okay, then we'll go on to the next item. So I just wanted to give a project overview, and for this, I'm mostly going to turn it over to Dr. Lang. I gave everybody a brief idea of, of what a feasibility study is. So, in essence, what we're going to be doing here, the work of this committee will be to form a subcommittee to pick an OPM. And then, once we have an OPM on board, we'll move into the designer selection process. That's more driven by the state and MSBA at this point, from what I know. But we'll learn along the way, and although I've worked with MSBA extensively in the past, and I know Dr. Lang has, things have changed over the years, so some of it's new to all of us. So anyway, having said that, I will turn it over to Dr. Lang for a project overview.
Sure, so we actually have 3 different options that we've been approved to look at with the MSBA. This work actually started many years back, 2016, 2017, when we engaged a firm to come in and do a facilities assessment for us, to take stock of our current buildings, to tell us on 2 fronts. We wanted some help in the short term because the town spends their own capital funding each year to do some maintenance projects of the buildings. This year, I think we spent right around $6 million or so on capital projects to keep all of town facilities going. So we want to make sure that over the course of the 10 years, we're really putting forward projects in the right order, and that made a lot of sense to maintain the buildings we had for the long term. At the same time, we also knew that we were going to be looking at a little bit of an enrollment increase in the schools, and we're at capacity within our own school buildings. So back at the time, again, this is 2016-17, we also wanted, as a district, we were one of the only communities that didn't have full-day kindergarten. So we couldn't actually fit full-day kindergarten into our schools without some additional capacity. So we went to town meeting and actually bonded and funded the project on our own without going to the MSBA, the addition of modular classrooms at each of the 4 elementary schools. These aren't your kind of old-school modular classrooms that you might think about. It's actually just modular construction and a modular building. So we added 22 classrooms. About half were used to help with full-day kindergarten implementation, and the other half were to help for the next 10 years as far as student enrollment was concerned. But we also knew, even beyond those classrooms, our enrollment was going to continue to increase through the mid-2030s. We're still projected to increase by 600 to 800 kids between now and 2035. So we're pretty much at capacity, particularly at the elementary and the middle school level of the district, and we need some more capacity going forward. About 3 or 4 years back, we decided to put together an application to the MSBA, thinking as a community, if we could do one project, because again, funding is certainly going to be an issue for the community. We could do upgrades of all 8 of our facilities if we really, had the funding and the ability to do that. But we knew we wanted to be strategic. We wanted to figure out what would a singular project be that could accomplish the most benefit for the town, both with new facility and also taking care of some of our enrollment needs. And we originally thought about a new high school project. So people will hear, well, what about the high school application that we submitted? So we submitted that for a number of years. The thought process at the time would be, if we were able to build the new high school, then our high school kids, grades 9 to 12, would benefit from a new facility. And our 2 middle schools could actually merge into the current high school, which is the newest building in town. And then one of the middle schools could come offline, which likely would have been Parker. And then McCarthy could have been like a 5th elementary school, and that would have given us capacity at that level. We tried for 4 years, and we just didn't get any traction with the state because every single year it's a competition for your building projects. And the high school, it is the newest building in town, in a 50-year-old building, competing against some of the high schools that were going in annually, which exceeded 100 years. We just were not able to make a competitive argument. There was nothing wrong with our application, but when it just came to need, we just weren't going to be in line. So we actually stepped back, I think, after the 4th year and had a conversation with the MSBA and said, we really do need to do a building in town. We have these needs that are before us. Kind of help us. What would be a better thing to look at potentially? And they said, you certainly can keep applying for the high school, but we don't know that it's necessarily going to go forward anytime soon. We had the firm that helped us with the facility assessment come back in. This was around 21, 22, to take a look again at the plan and figure out what could be maybe a second potential project that would have some widespread benefit to the town. And at that point in time, we ultimately decided on Parker Middle School being the priority project. we said it had to be one of the two middle schools, because if we were going to build a new school in town, and we could only do one, we have to be realistic. When this goes forward to a town vote for funding, if we were just going to build one brand-new, say, elementary school out of four, that's only going to benefit 25% of the town, it's highly unlikely we'd be able to get enough votes to be able to support that if only 25% of the town were benefiting from it. If we did something at the middle school level where the whole town benefits from it, that would have a better chance of potentially getting support town-wide. We took a look and said, all right, if we're going to do a middle school, what could be some possibilities to help us not only get a new middle school, but also help us with our enrollment needs? So that's when we put a statement of interest into the MSBA, and we ultimately were granted the ability to look at three very discrete and different projects. So the first project that we're going to look at during feasibility is just a one-for-one replacement of Parker Middle School. So that currently is a two-grade level configuration. All of our kids in town go to Parker Middle School for grades 5 and 6, and then all the kids in town move up to McCarthy for grades 7 and 8, and then they go off to the high school. So the first option we're going to look at is just a one-for-one replacement of Parker. Obviously, it wouldn't include the modular buildings because Parker has 10 modular buildings in the space that are at the end of their useful life. So this would be all new construction. It would be a great new school for two grade levels, 5 and 6, but it would not help the district at all as far as our enrollment increases, particularly at the elementary school level. The second option we're going to take a look at is a new potential grade 4, 5, 6 school, so a 3-grade level school. If we were able to build a grade 4, 5, 6 school, obviously the grade 5 and 6 students would benefit from a new building, and town-wide would benefit from that new building. But we'd be able to take grade 4 out of the elementary schools and basically open up 100 spaces, because we have about 100 kids per grade level at the elementary, and give or take a couple here or there. But that would be able to open up 4 or 5 classrooms at the elementary level to help those buildings have a longer life as far as enrollment is required. That would be kind of a mid-range program, budget-wise. That'll be probably the project that's in the middle funding-wise. And again, would produce a new school. All kids in town would benefit grades 4, 5, and 6 before they then went up to McCarthy for 7, 8. The third option that we're going to look at would be, we kind of term like a mega middle school. If we actually built one new middle school that was grades 5 to 8, and we were able to reconsolidate McCarthy and Parker under one umbrella, Parker would then go offline because that's the school that's our priority, but that would free up McCarthy to, again, potentially be a 5th elementary school. So that project would address the enrollment needs at the elementary level, but it would create a very large middle school. Approximately, I don't have the number right in front of me, 18 to 1,900 students, which is bigger than our high school. So from a scale perspective, that's certainly going to, in the end, be the highest cost, because you're looking at 4 grade levels of students as opposed to 3. But those are the 3 discrete projects that the MSBA approved us to look at. And when we go through the process of hiring an owner's project manager and then ultimately a designer, and we have community input sessions and we start looking through the various options of what makes the most sense to us, those are the 3 that we have to kind of work from. Ultimately, with the OPM and the designer, we'll come up with our preferred solution. We'll have to work with the MSBA to make sure they're on board with that. And ultimately, we would advance the project through schematic design and actually have renderings and an idea of where the facility would go, how many students it would seat. One of the things that actually I think was very beneficial to us this summer was when we did the enrollment certification with the MSBA. We were certified for very good enrollments for the buildings. The school committee had NASDAQ come in and do a long-range student enrollment projection for us. We were able to bring that to the table when we had the discussion with the MSBA about the right size of the buildings to build. They're a partner, and technically at this point, even through this feasibility study, their approval rate is 52%. So the MSBA is actually paying 52% of the cost. The town is paying 48% of the cost. They want to make sure that we don't overbuild. They want to make sure that we don't underbuild, because then we'd be back at them too soon. So you need to kind of right-size the building. But I'm very happy with the enrollments that we were allowed to include, because they took into consideration, and they don't always do this, but they took into consideration our 10-year projected increase, so that the 3 options we'd be looking at, the just 5-6, the 4-5-6, or the 5 through 8, all include the enrollments for the projection right up through the mid-2030s. So that was very good news for us. I think that kind of gives us just a little flavor of kind of where we're going. I know a lot of people have been involved as we go. I think for the community, it's going to be important to keep them involved and informed as we go through this process. I think there's a general excitement, even within the building, among, families and staff to start this process. And it's going to begin with bringing the owner's project manager on board, who's really going to be our representative at the table, getting a designer, and then I see the real work to figure out which of those three options will play out, happening probably next fall. When we come back to school in the fall is when we would have contracts with both firms, and that's when we would really start the deep work of talking about which of those options make the most sense.
Thank you, Jay. So we pretty much just covered the eligibility period, enrollment projections and certifications, and the school design options. So our hope, as Jay said, is, we'll get an OPM on board. We did have a little curveball today that changed some dates for us that I'll get into momentarily. But so we hope to have an OPM on in the next couple of months, and then have a designer on by the end of the summer, is what we're looking to do. And then that, as Jay said, that would start the work of figuring out the various options and so on. So to further our work, we need to put forth a owner's project manager selection committee, which will be a subcommittee of this committee. And again, there is MSBA requirements for people on this committee, so I've listed those titles next to each of our names so that it's clear that we are meeting the requirements from MSBA. So this is the group that I put forward, who I think have experience with construction and project management and such. And I would like to put this subcommittee forward for a vote of approval, so that we can go ahead and start that work. So with that, I would look for a motion to approve the owner's project manager selection subcommittee.
I'll make a motion to approve the owner's project management selection subcommittee as presented.
Second?
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I need to take a poll vote because we have a couple of people here on Zoom. So Jim Clancy? Yea or nay?
Aye.
Yes. That's an aye? Okay. Christine?
Yes.
Matt?
Yay.
Josh?
Yay.
Dennis?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Tim? Brandon? John?
Hi.
Ryan? Joanna?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So that takes care of that. We have a subcommittee approved. Okay. So on to the timeline of what we're going to be working on. So I had given everybody a timeline in the agenda. We were notified this morning, and I've given everybody a copy of the letter that we got from MSBA this morning, saying apologies, but there's been a change to the Town of Chelmsford's OPM procurement schedule. So we were hoping to make it for the OPM panel meeting, which is on April 7th. MSBA only does 2 of these meetings a month. So we were hopeful we would be able to get in on April 7th, and we were pushing for that. However, we were notified this morning that we are now pushed out to the May 12th date. So I think our, talking with Dr. Lang today, I think our objective will be to maintain getting the RFS into MSBA, and maybe even get the notification and request for services out early, so that we're in that arena as other communities are looking at OPMs. The OPMs know that, oh, Chelmsford has a really good project coming too, maybe I'll wait or something along those lines. So we're still going to be aggressive, but I have put out, giving everybody the new dates. And for this, I'll turn it over to Jay that can bring us up to speed a little bit better.
Yeah, so there, and I forgot to mention this earlier, there were actually two things to make note of. When we started this process a year or so ago, the MSBA has a very prescribed timeline of when you move through the various stages. So we were originally told to get through eligibility. The earliest we would go to the MSBA board for approval was the last meeting in February. So they have a meeting at the end of February. We got all of our stages done much sooner than anticipated, and town meeting appropriated the funding for the feasibility study much earlier in the process. Usually that's the last step we would take in the fall, but we did that in the spring. So we had all of our documentation into MSBA ahead of time. It was there in September. So Chelmsford and 3 other communities got invited in early. So we actually had a MSBA board meeting in December instead of waiting to February, and they allowed 4 buildings, 4 communities to move into feasibility early. The other 12, I believe, are waiting until the February board meeting to be advanced forward. So we were very excited to be one of the 4 to move in quicker because it's going to let us kind of hit the street early and be one of the front-running districts. We were originally, again, as Pat had said, slated to go for OPM approval at the April board meeting. We found out today that we're going to get bumped to the May meeting. It's not the end of the world. It is only a month. When we actually look at the bidding process that the MSBA lays out for us, it's very tight. So there's an advertisement, your proposals are due in 2 weeks. We then have 2 weeks to review and get information to the MSBA. So I think, and I believe we agree, if we actually maintain the regular original posting date that we were going to, then the other 2 communities that are going to move forward will be out there advertising. We would also be out there advertising, so districts and firms would know that we're looking for an OPM. At the same time, we can relax our timeline a little bit for the proposals to come in. So instead of a 2-week turnaround, we can give them an extra week, which is more custom to do a 3-week turnaround. And then we can also add a week of review and interviews so that we're not quite so crunched either, and still get our information into the MSBA to be able to make that May meeting. So in the end, I think if we're actually advertising at the same time we originally thought we were going to, we're not going to be at a competitive disadvantage. Firms are actually going to have an extra week or so to be able to write their application for us. So that could also help. And we're not going to be quite so rushed doing the reviews, the rankings, the interviews, and ultimately making the selection to move forward to the MSBA. So basically, we would just be bumping out our timeline on the receipt of the applications and the review by about a 2-week time period, but we would still maintain that advertisement of February 5th, so that we're going out originally with the other groups. And I think that would still work for us.
Agreed. Okay, so that covers the timeline and selection process. Offline, I'll probably send a note out to the OPM selection committee just to start that process. So I don't know that we need to get into that tonight, but I'll probably grab each year as we're walking out the door and just find out what your time availability is, and then we can set something up from there. So everybody should have received a copy of Jay's draft request for services for the OPM. And so that's the next item for discussion. So if anybody has anything related to the review of the request for services for the OPM that Dr. Lang has put together.
Just on that, the MSBA, again, has a pretty prescribed document that they want you to use, and we just fill in Chelmsford-specific information into the document. So what I did is I took information that we received from the statement of interest, I took information that we received from the invitation into feasibility, and basically just put the Chelmsford-specific information into the format. It's a standard format that the MSBA uses.
Okay. So does anybody have anything right out of the gate that we need to talk about? I know one of there's a few things that I've grabbed like along the way, like the first paragraph, we need to take out school and project and a couple of those types of things. I think we need to work in the next few days on the.
Oh, I did.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
So we need to submit a project range, so in the request for services for the OPM. So it's a total construction cost project range, which we're sitting here talking about three totally different projects. So it can only be a range, it'll have to be as best guess as what we can. And I had started looking at it, but
Yeah,
Dr. Lang has done some work on that.
The feedback we got from the MSBA was, this is preliminary. Obviously, we have three very different projects that we're looking at. What they advise us to do is look at the historical data. They have like a site on their site that you can look and see current projects that are underway, projects that are currently bid. So what I ended up doing was taking a combination of elementary and middle schools that had a similar student size, because I'm going to project a similar square footage because it all works off the student counts, and came up with basically a range from, on the low end, 115 million to a high end of 185 million. Now, I had to actually go up into some of the high school projects because most middle schools in the state don't have an 18 to 1900 enrollment. You had to get into the high schools to kind of get a sense of what those construction costs are. But construction costs of a high school is significantly higher than they are of an elementary and a middle school because of the type of spaces that they have. But they had advised also, this is just a range to give the OPMs a sense of the potential scale that they would be working from. So that's what I had kind of plugged in as a tentative, 115 to 185.
First glance, that's very sensible to me. I don't know if there's any comment to that from anybody? No? Okay.
Is that today's dollars, or is that future for when you're gonna actually do the construction?
That was based on actual just projects that were awarded.
Okay.
So current,
So
that
they're-
doesn't consider like 2 years down the line.
Okay, so that's basically today's dollars, not the construction dollars.
Recently awarded contracts, yeah.
You just don't want perception out there that, people are gonna think, oh, the most this would ever cost is 185, but it's actually,
Yeah, I mean, all bets are off when it comes to
exactly.
the
We
cost.
saw what happened to the market a few years ago, and
Yeah, and you've just heard the discussion. This is purely a guess on our part because it's such a wide-ranging myriad of projects and such. So that's the best we can do. And one thing is for sure, when we complete this feasibility study, we will have all that pertinent information and have it pinned down and accurate cost estimates and enough planning done to put a firm number on the cost. But and for those people, again, you're hearing these numbers of 115 million to 185 million. Please keep in mind that we're looking at 52% of reimbursement if we act before the state does something crazy and puts a moratorium on again or something like that. So, anyway, Jay, I saw the square footage at 109,300. I always had it at 104, but that's just gross? Is that, Brian, is that the number that you guys are using these days for MSBA purposes?
Did your number include the modulars? Or?
No, 104 was the base school. So the 109,300 includes the modulars there.
I'm guessing that might be.
I'm guessing that's what it was,
Okay,
because
okay.
that was from the facility assessment we did. That was the square footage that they had identified.
Oh, okay.
It says not including though in your thing. 193 feet, not including modular classrooms.
Yeah, the 1093, it came from the facility assessment, which the folks here are going to look at also, because that's like an attachment
Okay.
so that they can get information on the project. I think it's
We're in the
within
range.
reason.
We're in the range, yeah. So, okay, and then the next thing I saw was that, so one of the things we need to do under the evaluation criteria on page 5 of 23 is we need to assign points totaling up to 100 points to each of the 11
yeah.
11 categories that there are. So Dr. Lang has put forth point scaling on that, and I just want to see if everybody agrees to the level of importance placed on each item by the points. I looked at this earlier and I was fine with it.
Yeah, so this was an area in the review that's kind of open-ended. So you have the 11 different criteria you have to rate individuals on, but they leave the point structure to you. So what I ended up doing to just, I popped it up on the screen if you want to
good.
take a look.
Yep.
Let me just figure out how to make this bigger. What I ended up doing is having a point total that just came down to 100 at the bottom. And as I look through the different criteria, and again, this is me, so we can move things around however you like it. But I just typically in the past have thought some of the most important things are the personnel that the firm is actually going to assign to the project. Because it's all well and good to have a great proposal, but it's the people who have feet on the ground who are actually going to make or break a project. So the key personnel, I ranked highly, as well as past performance of the actual OPM. So what type of projects have they worked on? Do they have the experience to do this? Was kind of the two most important areas for me, and I had just ranked, given them 20 points each. Then secondly, I had the management approach, so however they're going to actually propose to accomplish this, their capacity as a firm to be able to take on the project, and then knowledge of and experience with getting into cost estimating, because again, sometimes if you don't have that experience, there's a sticker shock when you go out to bid if your prices come in and they don't have any real backing to them. And then there were a lot of other ones as far as, having familiarity with building code and procurement and things like that. Those obviously are important and they're required for the MSBA, but I view those other 5 areas as kind of the key. But again, this is interchangeable, and it was just suggested that it add up to 100, just to make it a easy scoring system.
I have a question just about this. This is Christine Clancy about the scoring system. I know what we've usually done is instead of a scoring system is that you have advantageous, highly advantageous, not advantageous. Are we required to do the scoring system?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, Christine, we are.
They require it.
This is part of the RFS template that is provided by Mass School Building Authority. So the only thing we can do is fill in any place in that form that I sent over. The only place we can make any changes or put our input in is in the italicized or bold areas within that RFS. So this is definitely part of their process, and it is up to us to assign a point scoring system to this process.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
right. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
They have very detailed scoring sheets you have to use, and again, the only thing that we can do is kind of assign the points to the areas, but you have to have these 11 areas, and you have to use points, and you have to use their scoring sheets. That's all prescribed.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions on the scoring? And as we start our first OPM subcommittee meeting, we can, if some minor changes need to be done, we can certainly do that. But we just wanted the committee to see what we'll be talking about and how we'll be evaluating this. So going on, any other edits? Just after that, Jay, I see like asterisks where you deleted some of the italicized things. But like these little asterisks, if I'm the guy responding, what's this, page 6? So if I'm the guy responding, I'm looking forever for where that asterisk relates to, but it doesn't relate to anything because that was the italicized stuff that was taken out. Just so we don't drive our respondents crazy. Other than that, timeline has changed. We still have to talk, Christine and Jay will figure out who all the information is going to. I believe the proposals have a certain indication of how they need to be addressed and so on.
They do, and I've subsequently filled that out. So DPW will be serving as the department to issue the RFS. Christine, as the DPW director, will be the individual who receives them and who any questions are directed at. We'll obviously all help answer them, but Christine will be the contact of that. I'll send this one out to you afterward. The RFSs are going to be labeled, owner's project manager for Parker Middle School. When they come into DPW, to Christine's attention, we're going to bump that date out a week. And then on page 10, DPW sent me over a couple of required sheets that they use on the back of their bids for sign-offs and things like that. So I'm going to incorporate them as attachments.
For additional certifications.
Yeah, there are two that the town uses, so I'm going to add those to the back of the
Okay.
packet.
Excellent.
And then Paul serves as the owner's procurement officer for the town overall, so I plugged in Paul's information on that.
Before we get
Oh, you have
too much
one?
further ahead, I just have one more on the, so under the process, and this is, again, where it's italicized, so this is,
Yep. What do you got?
certain items, certain numbered items, we have to fill in, and certain numbered items, MSBA fills in for us. So the last item, J, item 9, is it's italicized, but it says the owner may re-advertise if less than 3 responses are received and/or if fee negotiations fail. So I think, does that want to say may or will? And I put that to Paul and Mosley.
I took the italicized off, because I think that's
Yeah.
one we want to keep, and I just made it may,
Okay,
because then that gives us the discretion.
I'm okay with that. Paul, you good with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, 9. That's all I had.
Okay.
So, anything else you
Yeah, I
want
got
to add
the
to it?
two other forms, and that's basically it.
Okay, so that's the review. If there's anything else, go ahead and forward it to Jay and myself, but, we'll clean that up, and our intent is to get that in,
By the end of the week.
by the end of the week to the state, so that,
And
we
they may
can-
have feedback too.
yep. Yeah, that's
So
true,
we-
that's
we'll
true.
have to respond to their feedback.
And I've always found it better to be ahead of the curve than trying to play catch-up, especially when it comes to MSBA, so, and they like it that way as well, so. Designer selection overview, I'm not gonna get too far into at this point, just because, I'll wait until we get the OPM on board. There is, it's another complex process, but I believe MSBA takes more initiative than we will, and probably have more say than we might even have to say when it comes to the selection of an architect, so. When we get there, we'll go across that. So at this point, next steps and future meetings, I had anticipated prior to the email this morning that we'd be getting together again in about a month to go for a vote for the OPM selection by this committee. So the subcommittee will come up with who they think is best, and then we will come for a final vote from this committee to move that on to Mass School Building Authority when the time comes. So I had assumed we'd be meeting about a month from now, or late February, to be in line for the April 7th situation, but looking at it now, I don't know that we really need to get together.
I think it's probably late March, because
It's
it's gonna be
probably
bumped
mid
back
to
up.
late March at this point, so that doesn't mean that the OPM subcommittee won't be working, we'll be working feverishly to get this done, but, so we'll let you know as things progress and how we're doing, but you should expect that we'll have and I'll try to get that out early so everybody can plan around it, because I know that, it's getting into that time of year when people like to take vacations, so I'll try to get something out in the next week or so as far as a date for that March meeting, but that's where I see us going next. And as far as the subcommittee goes, we'll reach out and we'll get everybody's schedule and go from there. So having said all that, is there anything else that anybody would like to go over or review? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second, and again, I have to poll vote, so Jim Clancy,
Aye.
Christine Clancy,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Tim, Brandon, John, Ryan, Joanna,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Aye.
Dennis, Matt,
Yes.
Josh. And I'm a, aye. All right, thanks, everybody. Looking forward to it.